So this is going to be fun, because if you couldn't tell by that little title sequence I had just there, I am going to have to make this video over the course of at least 2 days, because it feels like Disney just won't stop with the news this week, and I, of course, am here to cover the news for you. That's why we're at the desk. Nobody's in trouble today, we're just here to talk about the news. And today, by the way, is April 2nd as I record this that you're watching right now. And some bigger news pieces of news I should say, dropped this morning. One being about Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and the other being about the Autopia at Disneyland. So the first cool thing that happened today, make sure you're taking notes, is the Los Angeles Times reported that Disney is indeed going to eventually replace the gas-powered cars in the Autopia attraction with either new hybrid cars or new electric Autopia cars, and I think that is awesome and a long time coming. In the article, which focuses even more broadly in a sense on the rest of Tomorrowland, a Disneyland representative says, since opening with Disneyland Park in 1955, Autopia has remained a guest favorite, most popular with young kids experiencing driving for the first time. As the industry moves toward alternative fuel sources, we have developed a roadmap to electrify this attraction and are evaluating technology that will enable us to convert from gas engines in the next few years. And that's great. We now know that Disney has a roadmap to electrify the Autopia in the next few years. Few meaning 1, 2, or 3 years. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, some people framing this as Disney doing more blue sky, more beyond Big Thunder Mountain. Maybe someday we'll electrify the Autopia. Maybe, if we get to it. If you guys like it, maybe we'll electrify the Autopia. Maybe we'll build beyond Big Thunder Mountain. But I view this a little bit differently because the Autopia is actually a sponsored attraction, okay? Honda puts up most of the money for theming, and I don't know about maintenance, but definitely for theming and the cars themselves. So I don't think it's really up to Disney. I'm sure if they wanted to electrify the attraction this year and make all of the cars electric tomorrow, they could. But I think this case is a little different in that they are either waiting for the okay from Honda so they can front the money to upgrade the fleet of cars for the Autopia, maybe to coincide with some sort of marketing push or new retheme for the Autopia centered around electric vehicles, or they are waiting for that sponsorship to expire, to lapse, so they can either do it on their own or with a different sponsor. Autopia used to be sponsored by Chevron, and the attraction looked really different. And if we continue to go down the road that we're going on now, I think Honda will keep their sponsorship up, but if not, maybe Chevrolet will step in. Chevrolet is behind the new retheme of Test Track at Epcot and was behind the old retheme of Test Track at Epcot. And actually, GM and Chevrolet are sort of the same company, so GM and Chevrolet were also behind the original World of Motion. It's easier if you just don't think about it. Now, that being said, while I am optimistic about this new announcement and what it means for the future of Autopia, the bigger picture, I think that we're all failing to see here, is the potential future of Tomorrowland that this implies. Autopia is in Tomorrowland, right? We can all agree on that? I hope. There's also another attraction in Tomorrowland that could use a bit of a facelift. Maybe they could bring it back in a way that would move us all together as people, allowing us to enjoy aerial views of Main Street USA and Tomorrowland. Just saying. Now look at me. Look at me in my eyes. I will be the first person to scream New Tomorrowland whenever I see a tiny sign pointing toward a new Tomorrowland. I am not screaming New Tomorrowland in this case. I think if it were any other attraction in Tomorrowland, we'd be onto something because none of the other attractions are sponsored. The Autopia is the only sponsored attraction. Space Mountain, not sponsored. Buzz, not sponsored. Star Tours, submarines, Matterhorn, half of the Matterhorn? No, none of them are sponsored. The Autopia is a special case though, because like I said, Disney doesn't have to put up most of the money for this attraction. They can do essentially whatever they want with it, and Honda is paying the bills. So while a fully electric Autopia being announced seems like it could be a sign pointing toward a new Tomorrowland, I feel like instead this is sort of going to be a glimpse or a first step into that new Tomorrowland that we all so desperately want so very much, especially with the People Mover. You can't forget the People Mover. And while it may not happen for a couple more years, I would keep an eye on Autopia if it does end up getting a refresh or even a retheme, more so than just the cars being switched to being electric. That may end up cluing us in to what Disney is planning for Tomorrowland moving forward, including a People Mover, I hope. But that's not all, my friends, because today we also received the official attraction poster for Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Frontierland at the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. And if you're curious as to what it looks like, this is it. This is the poster right here. And if you're curious as to what Disneyland's will look like, this is probably what's gonna look like. Let's be real here. Now, I'm not one to call my shot, but the Disney Shareholders Conference is tomorrow. So I will check in with you tomorrow to see if my prediction of them announcing an opening date for Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Walt Disney World comes true. I'll be wearing a different shirt. Well, I got egg on my face. I thought they were going to announce an opening date for Tiana's Bayou Adventure at the Magic Kingdom today, and they did not. In fact, they didn't really announce anything for the parks today. Bob Iger just doubled down and saying that we're doing it. We're investing in the parks, and the parks are great, and we love the parks. So not much said on the investors call, if you were listening, but they did mention actually one thing on the investors call, and that is Pandora at Disneyland. This has been something we have been speculating about for a long time now. And they talked about this Pandora adventure at Disneyland alongside talking about Disneyland Forward. The Anaheim City Council is going to vote on that later this month, whether to approve it or to deny Disney this sort of rezoning initiative would be the right word. And in a blog post released after the investors call, Josh D'Amaro sort of more or less confirmed that this Pandora experience is going to be part of Disneyland Forward. Now, the question I have in my head, and that is, where in the world, I guess in the land, are they going to put this darn thing? There are two very strong contenders that have two very, very strong arguments behind them. Now, before I tell you about where this could go, I want to show you the piece of concept art they released today. This is it. This is the concept art for the possible Avatar expansion to the Disneyland Resort. California Adventure, Disneyland, Disneyland Forward, anywhere else? We're not 100% sure yet. Either way, I think this looks fantastic. An outdoor boat ride and the waves crashing against the back of the land and against the shoreline. It's just so kinetically charged. This is what Avengers Campus and Galaxy's Edge were missing. And this encourages me. This shows me that Disney does realize that kinetic energy making a land feel alive is very important. Rides that go outdoors are so incredibly valuable for that reason alone. Now, where is this gonna go? One possibility is that it will be part of the Disneyland Forward expansion on the California Adventure side. If you look at this big dang grand old map of Disneyland Forward, you want to zoom in on the blue portion of the map, denoting the Disney California Adventure side of the expansion. If we look really closely and get a higher resolution image, that these bridges in the concept art sort of line up with the bridges in this Disneyland Forward plan. You can see here that there are bridges leading over a bunch of water paths that sort of zigzag or wind their way through the land that backs up to an elevated structure. A structure that is, tall. It goes up into the air. And you look at the piece of concept art, you can see bridges going over water that's trailing its way through the land that backs up to an elevated structure, this sort of nest plant root thing going up into the air. But what's really interesting to me is if we move further north toward Disneyland on this map, we see even more area that seems to, in my head, very closely mimic the layout of Pandora at Walt Disney World, where you can see a pretty sizable show building, one that I believe will belong to a Disneyland clone of Flight of Passage. They can't bring Pandora over to Disneyland and not bring Flight of Passage along with them. I mean, come on. As for River Journey though, I don't know exactly what their plan will be, whether the new Disneyland Forward attraction that goes outside will be an improved version of Na'vi River Journey, if they don't plan on bringing it over at all, or if there will also be a second boat ride that is River Journey. I'm assuming that the Na'vi River Journey attraction is what we see in this concept art, and it's just a bigger, better version of Walt Disney World's. But don't worry, Animal Kingdom, you have an expansion pad, okay? This isn't the end of Pandora at Walt Disney World, trust me. But that also makes me want to look at this map that shows the amount of noise these attractions are going to make, and within this Pandora area that I just talked about, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attractions, so I genuinely have no idea at this point. And before I move on, I do want to give a shout out to Mouska Gamer on Twitter for pointing this all out, and it really sort of makes sense. If you look at the thread that Mouska Gamer posted, you can kind of see it. There is, however, another possibility as to where this land could go, and that is in what exists today as the Hollywood backlot at California Adventure. Now, taking a look at this piece of concept art and the Hollywood backlot as it stands today, this looks a lot bigger than this. And you're right. It does, because it is. If Disneyland Forward is approved, this will allow Disney to move what is known as the Eastern Gateway, or how offhand Disney gets into the parks every single time he goes to Disneyland. That's the entrance just off of Harbor Boulevard that you can see me walking down here. The Eastern Gateway will be relocated to somewhere else. I don't think we're all entirely sure yet. If you remember back in 2017, Disney presented a new plan for a brand new Eastern Gateway that was shot down by the city and the businesses around Harbor Boulevard because it would cut down on foot traffic, people walking up and down the street. And that's valid. You know, those businesses have to make a living too. If there were just a bridge over Harbor Boulevard, which is what was presented, it would allow everyone to just skip by all of those businesses, and that's not entirely fair to them. So whatever Disney plans for a new Eastern Gateway will have to take this into consideration and be done a bit differently. But that is not to say that they can't do a new Eastern Gateway, and with that, expand back into the area that is currently occupied for this new Avatar land. The idea for this location comes from Jack over at DSNY Newscast, good friend of the channel. I'm going to link his video where he talks about this in the description down below, so be sure to go and check that out as well. There's also a little air of believability to this one too, because he also mentioned that the attraction in this Pandora expansion will be an e-ticket boat ride in a similar vein to the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction over at Shanghai Disneyland. And, well, wouldn't you know it, there's a boat ride in this concept art, and the ride vehicle looks a little bit bigger with a little bit of a higher capacity than Na'vi River Journey. I will say, however, if this attraction features a projected waterfall when they could just do a normal waterfall instead, I shall unleash my fury upon Disney like the crushing of 1,000 waves! Either that or an Imagineer watching this video will put one into the attraction just to make me mad, which will in turn, ironically, make me finally respect the projected waterfall, if you know what I mean. Now, we may not know where this Avatar expansion is going necessarily quite yet, but we do know one thing, and that is it is entirely dependent on Disneyland Forward being approved. This is the carrot that Disney is dangling in front of the city of Anaheim's face to get them to approve Disneyland Forward. If Disneyland Forward is not approved, this might not end up happening. We'll see in the end. But it just goes on to further my theory that, you know, if Disneyland Forward is approved, D23 this year is gonna be insane. Like we talked about this in my last video. They've made a bunch of smaller announcements leading up to D23. If the parks panel doesn't blow those out of the water, there's not really a point in holding it. It's at the Honda Center this year. D23 has to deliver this year. If it doesn't, I'm gonna be worried. I will be worried, in fact. But right now, I'm optimistic. I wouldn't say I'm not worried right now. I definitely am worried about the future of the parks, but I'd like to remain optimistic. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a fool's errand, but that's me. Now, I know I'm not supposed to be tuning into investor calls with the expectation that it's going to be sort of a mini parks panel, but we do get some announcements sometimes. We got the Pandora thing today, but I am kind of sad we didn't get an opening date for Bayou Adventure at Disney World because I'm going next month and I want it to be open. But the amount of news that we are getting for the parks before it even hits, you know, June or July is really telling for me. I think it's a reason to be sort of excited for this year's D23. I'm just the kind of loser who's excited in the first place to just even get to go to the parks, to walk through that gate, to eat the food and ride the rides and listen to the music. So what do I know? I want to know what you all think of the news that has been released over the course of the past, at this point, 2 weeks, what you think the Pandora experience at Disneyland is going to be, where it's going to go, and how long before we start seeing the electric cars on the Autopia, what opening date for Tiana's, and if you are still excited, as I am, for the D23 Expo. Even if the parks panel sucks, the Expo itself is just so much fun. I'm just reiterating what I said in last week's video at this point. It's a problem. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and if the news cadence keeps up like this, I'll see you next week, I guess, for another offhand news, because Disney just likes to keep me busy, and you know what? I like to be busy. Keep it up, Disney. I am gonna go, however, to the end card. You all thought, didn't you? You all thought that was the end. So did I. So did I. So today I woke up to a brand new episode of We Call It Imagineering, a new sort of YouTube series that Disney is uploading to, yes, this website, YouTube, showing us the sort of behind the scenes of Imagineering. I talked about a long time ago how during Walt's tenure at Disneyland and as president of the Walt Disney Company, families around America would often get behind the scenes looks at upcoming attractions and expansions to Disneyland through the television program Disneyland. But as the years went by and entering the 2000s, Disney became a lot more secretive with Imagineering. They didn't really want to show us what they had until either A, the ride was open, the media advertising push for the ride began, or until it was absolutely ready to a point where they wanted to show it off. And now we're getting a sort of behind the scenes look again, a nice little throwback to those 50s and 60s days where we would be able to see what was happening behind the scenes before it was officially open to the public. I just think opening up that creative and technological construction process to the public is really cool. Obviously, it's not open all the way, we don't know everything, but giving us a glimpse behind the curtain is always awesome. It feels good to get an idea of how Imagineering works, and if you can't tell, it's early in the morning where I am. We first got a look at a ton of different audio animatronics for Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and let me say, these animatronics did not disappoint. Okay, I was worried a while ago that they would all be, projection faces, similar to Frozen Ever After at Epcot, and when they revealed the Tiana animatronic, those fears were sort of put to rest for me. And today, those fears have absolutely been put to rest. These animatronics look absolutely stunning. Bravo, Disney, bravo. Now, if you haven't seen the video, I highly recommend you go and watch it. I'm gonna put a card to it, if I remember, up at the top of the video right now. Go check it out, because it's a really cool way of looking into Imagineering and seeing, the technology versus the creativeness aspect of the whole thing, and how those can kind of have like a battle dance sometimes. And when they come together and they work out, it's really, really neat to see how these animatronics come to life. It's just interesting to watch, so please go ahead and watch that. But I am very, very satisfied with what I've seen so far for the animatronics for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. My excitement for this ride, it continues to build day after day. I get more and more excited. I just hope this opens by the end of May. Please open by the end of May. And that's not just because I'm going to Walt Disney World at the end of May. I know it won't. I just want to believe. But I mean, come on, look at these animatronics. These are so good. Now, there is one more maybe piece of news that I want to talk about today, and that is in regards to the Beyond Big Thunder Mountain expansion at the Magic Kingdom that they announced 2 years ago at D23 Expo. See, there was a lot of criticism for the Beyond Big Thunder Mountain expansion announcement. Blue Sky testing the waters? I don't really know what that was, and rightfully so. I don't think Disney should be pitching Blue Sky concepts to guests at D23 Expo. Maybe that's more of a survey thing that you do, in the parks, to people, not just huge fans like the ones who go to D23, but people who visit once every year, once every 5-10 years, people from all walks of life who visit the parks. That's important. And it was kind of expected we wouldn't see anything materialize on this expansion for the next, 5, maybe even 10 years. It was going to be a long ways down the line. But this morning, we got the announcement that Disney themselves are beginning to file permits for the construction of the Beyond Big Thunder Mountain expansion. That means their plans have been honed since 2022, and they are ready to not just, get moving on what they actually want to do, but they're getting ready to break ground and start construction. Or at least land clearing. They're not going to go vertical for a while, but they are going to start doing things beyond Big Thunder Mountain. They are going to start laying the foundations for that expansion. It's going to happen. And at this point, if Disneyland Forward gets approved, I am convinced that there are 100% going to be 3 announcements that are made at D23 this year in August. 1, the Avengers e-ticket. We got to get some closure on that at this point, or else it's never going to happen. 2, the Pandora experience at Disneyland. Will get more expanded upon that if Disneyland Forward is approved. And 3, I think we are going to see the full realization of the Beyond Big Thunder Mountain concept. We're going to see a construction date. We're going to see the final idea that they have for this expansion. I am of the camp that it's going to be all villains themed, especially with Epic Universe and their whole sort of monster land going on over there. I think Disney's going to do their version of that. Obviously, a little more tame, but with the Disney villains that leads from Big Thunder Mountain to the Haunted Mansion. It makes perfect thematic sense, and I think they would be doing themselves a disservice if they didn't do this villains expansion, Beyond Big Thunder Mountain expansion. I'm getting too ahead of myself. In the next few weeks, we'll see these permits being filed, they'll become public, and we'll see why Disney decided to set up that sort of miniature Imagineering home base behind Dino Land at Disney's Animal Kingdom. They've got a lot of work ahead of them at Walt Disney World, that's for sure. And if there's one main, really big reason to be excited, it's that user KubaBVB09 on Reddit says that they've been doing a lot of geotech work out in that area and that we are all in for a treat. So, I mean, if KubaBVB09 knows, then I think we all are truly in for one of the biggest and best expansions in Disney Parks history. Not even Disney World history, Disney Parks history. I can't stop being optimistic, it's a disease! Now there is one more thing I want to mention, unless there's a surprise day 4 at the end of this video. Did you all notice that there is a SEA pinboard in that episode of We Call It Imagineering? I'm gonna show it on screen right here. Now I don't know what this means, okay, they have a map of the world Mystic Manor right there, but that SEA West Coast headquarters has my attention. I don't know if this is alluding to an attraction, I don't know if this is alluding to something else, it's just something to keep in mind. We have the Avengers campus at California Adventure, why not have SEA campus somewhere at Disneyland Forward? It's something to think about, something to keep in mind. Okay, this is it. This is the end of the video. Unless there's more news tomorrow, I am going to go to the end card, all right? Right now. Day 4. Let's give it up for day 4. Disney just doesn't want to stop releasing news, and you know what? I'm actually kind of okay with that. This morning, Disney released the official closing date and a new piece of concept art for the reimagining of Test Track that is going to go on over at Epcot, and I could not be more excited for this new version of Test Track, especially because they've gone on record saying that it is a callback to the original World of Motion attraction, and boy, do I want to ride World of Motion. I've never experienced it in my life. And here is our first look at the new facade for new Test Track. And may I say, this, honestly, I think might be working a lot more for me than the old facade. You don't have those metal pipes in that canopy extending out super far. Yes, you do still have a canopy to like sort of protect a little bit of the extended queue outside and the cast members, but it's not as shaded, which honestly, side note, Epcot always could use more shade. It's the second shadiest park at all of Walt Disney World, and it could always use more. We got a new sign with a new font, and I'm also really interested in these lights up here. I believe that's a members lounge for Chevrolet. I'm wondering how this will look at night when it's all lit up. The signs, the canopy, and these lights up top. I feel like that could be really, really interesting. And as you can see from this image, the single rider line will remain. I'm very, very happy about that. Test Track is one of the best rides to hop in the single rider queue for, and I'm glad it's sticking around. I'm glad they didn't just take it away to sell more Genie Plus. Disney, good job. But that is it. Okay, there's new missions on Star Tours today, but I believe that about wraps up all the news that we've gotten this week for the Disney parks. It has been a long week, and if you've stuck with me throughout this entire video where we just talk about what's happening and what might happen in the future of Walt Disney World and Disneyland, thank you for sticking around. And now, for the very last time, let me update my feed here. We are gonna go to the end card. Quickly now, quickly. Are we done? Is it over? I joke, but I loved this week with all of the new announcements and all of the news pertaining to the Disney parks. It was an awesome time, and I am glad you all stuck with me through this entire video. I was gonna post it originally on Wednesday, and then something happened on Wednesday, so I was going to post it on Thursday, and I was going to post it on Thursday, but then something happened on Thursday, and then something happened this morning, the Test Track update. So it gets pushed further and further back in the week, but I am glad you stuck with me through this. If you'd like to go that extra mile and support the channel just a little bit more than you are doing right now by watching to the end, thank you for that, by the way, head over to the link in the description down below to my Patreon page, and even just $1 a month will get you access to most of the perks. Like, they got the earliest sort of final version of this video earlier in the week before Disney just decided to announce more and more and more. So that was a great time. Thanks, Disney. Genuinely, thank you. If you'd rather follow me for free on my other social media profiles, I am at Offhand Disney on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're interested in I post on Twitter the most, but Instagram and TikTok from time to time. But that, everyone, let me go ahead and update my feed one more time. Okay, that, everyone, is the end of this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video that will probably also be a news update. Let's be real here. Let's face facts. Goodbye.